watching the movie Slacker, or it happened when I was watching one of the Star Wars movies. I really don't know which, but it just at one point occurred to me that it would be interesting to try and make a game that is entirely based on conversations, and this is where it's gotten to me so far. The first time that I was ever able to make any kind of games in this vein and really dedicate to it was when I was in a class with Kunal at ITP. It was all about making inclusive games with inclusive design. These were all games that were designed for handicapped kids, kids who couldn't use regular controllers or anything like that. We were encouraged to make games that could be played with as few buttons as possible. And because I didn't know how to do any programming at that point, I built all of my games in PowerPoint, which thankfully I've grown out of. But it was there that I was first making my games that were based purely on letting players control a conversation based on 4 choices. All right. 4 choices. And those 4 choices, right from the beginning, were to say yes, no, to give an answer, or to ask a question. To me, those were the 4 best choices because, if for no other reason, each of them were kind of like a set of binary opposites. Yes is the opposite of no, and answer is the opposite of a question. And from those very kind of basic choices, you could basically allow a player to control a conversation in the same way that you control a battle in like a Final Fantasy game, where all you can do is attack, block, magic, or heal, or something like that. And from that point, and I just carried on and learned Flash and things like that to make those games possible. But one of the most interesting games that I saw when we were in inclusive game design, besides your game about like the bongo playing monkey, which I think is sort of like an early version of Meowtron. Thank you. One of the other really interesting games that I saw there that some of the people were making was a game called Conveyor Player by Tim Stutz and Matthew what was the other Matthew's name? The one who wasn't Matthew Fargo, what was his name? Matthew Parker, yes. And this was a game that, like a lot of my games here, was designed for one button in which the player controlled a conveyor belt and with that they were allowed to choose which bin to put these different falling objects into. Usually just shapes, colors, pieces of food, things like that. A game that was really designed explicitly for kids with developmental challenges. And with that, they were actually able to make a really interesting game that was based on this one very simple mechanic. As soon as I saw the game, they didn't think too much of it. They made the game, they put it out there, they were happy the kids were playing with it, and they were happy to do some weird voiceovers with it. But as soon as I saw the game, I kind of fell in love with it. I felt like I was looking at an early version of Pitfall and just letting the tumblers go in my mind to see that it could be turned into Mario or Sonic or whatever. And I just thought to myself, and I said to them, you could make an entire game based purely on conveyor belts. An entire game based on that. And I especially liked, just after a while, how boring it would get to play a game that was entirely about conveyor belts. It would be a perfect use of the factory and the machine as a symbol of man's dehumanization with technology and society and things like that, and all these wonderfully pretentious things that could be fit into a one-button gameplay thing. And I just loved it. And I also loved to think about the different types of gameplay that you could do with it, besides all the lofty stuff that you think of whenever you're drinking whiskey. I love to think about trying to make it into like some sort of a puzzle game, or into like some sort of weird version of Pachinko, where you just watch somebody fall and do that sort of thing. But because at this time I didn't know any programming, I didn't bother to think of it very much, so I just kind of went along my way, and it didn't come back to me until years later. Now, my relationship with the Kokoromi stuff and not being able to get anything in there actually began last year when I saw one of their requirements for Gamma 3D. And there they wanted you to make games that were based entirely on using stereoscopic 3D, that is to say, like, red and blue graphics. And as soon as I thought that, like, by this point I had been learning to make Flash games on a very limited scale. I didn't know how to make platforming yet, but as soon as I heard that, I thought to myself, this would be a perfect way to make a game that would basically be like a science fiction game about traveling through different dimensions, a red dimension and a blue dimension. And in my idea for the game that I was trying to get people involved with, because I didn't know how to build it at the time, my idea was that you were a mad scientist who had accidentally split our dimension into two, and you had to unite your red self with your blue self in order to do something. I didn't really work that out yet. But I liked the mechanic, and even though this didn't specifically fit into the Kokoromi guideline, and I wasn't able to make the game in time, I liked this mechanic of being able to have like one red character that only interacts with the red level elements, and then try to unite them with a blue character that only unites with the blue elements. So in that case, you would have, the red character would have to avoid red spikes, the blue character would have to avoid blue spikes, and just trying to do a kind of weird bipolar platforming from that. Eventually I was able to make the game, and I kind of made that game as a test run to just be able to rapidly prototype a game in Flash for the next Kokoromi thing. And with that, I was also able to finally pair my platforming games with my conversation games, doing it all as just doing every conversation just basically as a turn-based battle. Now, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm a socially awkward person over the years or something like that, but I really have tended to mostly see conversations and social interaction as general as this weird kind of battle space, or this weird sort of conflict resolution space in which you literally basically are just trying to talk to somebody until they see things from your point of view or let you do something. At the end of the day, every conversation that you will ever have in your life really is boiling down to, am I going to win or are you going to win? Are you going to, if you're trying to talk your way out of a ticket, if you're trying to, talk somebody into bed, if you're trying to talk your way into a job, I might be losing in a lot of my job interviews, but at least I know enough to know that that is a little bit of a battle. And with that, I just felt like a new sense of confidence in making those games, even though, you make these games forever, you put them online, and you don't really know if anybody's playing them or not. Now, the thing is, when I was making those games at first, I was really attached to the idea of making those games controlled by the arrow keys, and each of the 4 arrow keys would be one of your 4 selections during the conversation. Therefore, when the Kokoromi Gamma 4 thing came up, they said you had to. I actually like that song. Just like. Right, but when that Kokoromi thing came that said you had to make a game that was done in one button, at first I felt like a tiny sense of panic, because how do you make a game that, how am I going to make a game that I've always done with 4 buttons in one? And it was then, I don't remember which one that I thought of first. I don't remember if I thought immediately of, I don't know if anybody's played the Mega Man or the Zelda games. I either thought of the Master Sword Charge or the Mega Buster. But it was one of those things, and as soon as I thought of that, I thought, okay, you can control conversations with one button. And so from that, first of all, I felt like having the one-button conversation streamlined things immensely, and I liked being able to finally dig up this old conveyor belt gameplay that at this point was just buried somewhere in the back of my mind. But Oddly, I don't really have that much to say about the actual game that I have up there, aside from the fact that it is mainly just about being dehumanized and just being kind of stuck on a little conveyor belt. The conveyor belt, I guess, is a symbol of having absolutely no sense of control in your life. You know, that sort of thing. The main gameplay thing that I was thinking of here is I wanted to make a game that would be boring in a meaningful way. You know, having the conveyor belt sequences is interesting. Kunal talked to me about this a little while ago. He said that he liked the conversations in the game, but in between the conversations, he was annoyed that you basically had these conveyor belt cutscenes in the middle of them. And I really felt proud of myself then because the platforming sections of the game, the normal sections of the game, had suddenly become the cutscene, and the conversations had become the game. And that's something that I really liked. But at the same time, I do like the fact, for anybody who's going to play the game or has played the game, I do like the fact that the conveyor belts are slow and ponderous and boring. They're supposed to be boring. Being a robot on a conveyor belt is boring. Being in a factory sucks. And that's mainly, I guess, the thing. I guess I have been attracted to gameplay that is composed of boring and not boring. You know, Metal Gear is all about hiding from enemies and then being able to walk up to them and strangle them. Shadow of the Colossus is all about rolling around on your horse and being alone and, not doing anything until you get to kill something. Here I liked I like the division of having the conveyor belts, which are essentially a binary choice, one way or the other, and then suddenly having a conversation in which you have 4 choices. So by that point, talking to somebody actually does give you more of a sense of freedom, even though it does give you a bit more risk. And even though the game in the end did not get in, just as, like 145 other games did not get in, I like the fact that I was able to use this experiment as a moment to basically streamline my conversations into one button, which is where I think it becomes much more easy to just get through and play with. And besides that, I also like the fact that I've just made a game that I know from my conversations with Kunal and Syed makes people feel like shit. That is my mission accomplished. And that's it.